final session, we have with us Padma Bhushan Professor T. Ramasami sir, who has given his very valuable time to be with us. So he is also the former secretary for the Government of India, especially to the Ministry of Science and Technology. We also had the honor of welcoming sir when we went to his cabin and when we were discussing. So I was asking to sir for a brief profile. So sir said, you don't worry about it. You don't waste time introducing me. My talk will kind of unfold my walk. So I will do the walking and the talking as well. I did go to the internet. A huge list of achievements, the kind of work he has contributed to the Department of Science and Technology, the honors that he has had. So sir will speak about all those experiences with us. I hope this is going to be a very useful session. Followed by that, we will also have the valedictory. We are also joined this afternoon. Dr. Chandrasekhar is here with us, the former director of CLRI. So he has come to be with sir during the presentation. I welcome you both, sir. CFR, the scholars here are all very privileged to have your presence.
Very, very good afternoon. Of course, it's true that Shobha came to my office and said she wants a brief of my profile. I said, better that you don't increase the expectations of my people. So let my work introduce me to what I have been doing. I am going to share with you a journey. Whenever you are undertaking a journey, you also have some fellow travelers along with you. I am not talking about the rail relationship. You meet some people on rail and then after that you forget. But some people end up traveling for a long time with you. So I have with you, with this particular program, a fellow traveler in Dr. B. Chandrasekhar, who was the previous director of the Central Leather Research Institute. He happened to be one of my PhD students. Okay. So he has joined the journey, traveled with me for 38 years approximately, something like that, 84. So I have come back to India in 84. All 38 years he has been traveling with me. So if I say something wrong, he will catch me. Therefore, and he is at liberty to point out this out. Okay, I have deliberately named this Joy of Doing Useful Research, and I call it Anecdotal Story. It's a story. So after lunch, you people went for lunch very late, and after lunch, it's a really time to sleep. So best thing is you listen to a story, the sleep becomes natural. Okay. So this story begins with 3 key words. First it says research. What is research? Somehow all of us working in science departments and engineering departments think research means scientific. No. Anything that you do systematically, investigate systematically is research. Okay? My mother did so much research in the kitchen, and therefore she was very innovative. Therefore, research does not mean necessarily a laboratory. First, it can be anywhere. Now, useful research, you put an adjective useful. What it says is investigate systematically for possible use in applications. I use the word possible use in applications. Sometimes there can be directed use also, but possible use. For a large part of my time as a scientist, I did useless research. Okay? It was useful to me, but the research was otherwise useless for the community. I kept all that part out. So today I am not going to speak about the useless part of the research that I have done, which is 60%, 70% of my work. So what I am going to talk to you is some 25, 30% of what I have done. And I say joy. Joy of doing. What is the joy of doing? An internal feeling of pleasure or happiness from act of performing or executing. They're all from dictionary. Okay? If you go back and look at the dictionary, you will find that an internal feeling of pleasure or happiness from an act of performing and executing. So joy of useful research means my joy, my happiness, an internal feeling. And that is what I am going to primarily share with you today. But this talk, as I said before, an internal feeling of happiness, of investigating systematically, I have used the word something. Investigating systematically something. I was a secretary in the government of India for 8 years. I had no lab. But what I did was research. Because I was investigating you guys systematically. Investigating the Indian science system as a whole, systematically. That's research. For possible applications in real life that have been shared with many others as progressed. There was some research I did which was useless research which I enjoyed. But I started doing some useful research which was the joy shared with many others. Therefore, I'm going to share with you today that kind of joy-based work. So when I say joy of research, where does research start? It doesn't start only in Anna University or any university, not in the school. Every human being, a rational animal, okay? Man is a rational animal. The child, which has not been initiated into anything, is curious. So the curiosity is a childish behavior. Most original researchers, even at 75, are like children because that curiosity remains awake. So curiosity to know. Discover. When you say discover means there's already covered, you remove the cover. Discovery is essentially what is already there, you just come to know. Reason, analyze, understand, store in memory, call a drivel, realize new knowledge, apply. After doing all this, seek recognition and enjoy the power of knowledge. And most scientists have the joy of uniqueness. Okay? It so happened when I got Padma Shri in 2001, somebody in math science called. Hey Ramasami, what is this? You got Padma Shri and Lata Mangeshkar got Bharat Ratna. Hey, what is your problem? You are upset that I got Padma Shri or you are worried about Lata Mangeshkar getting Bharat Ratna? What's your problem? You are a scientist, you got a Padma Shri. She is only a singer and she got Bharat Ratna. Arey, what you don't realize? In my younger days, I was one of the 5 best chromium chemists of the world. The other 4 girls are outsiders. They are a very close group in chromium chemistry and a very nice group. But those guys will send our papers before sent to the journal to these fellows who do similar research elsewhere, Australia, England, all that business, before you go to the journal. And those fellows will read the paper before, preprint. These are very brilliant guys. When look at my paper, why I didn't think like this? So I took a very brilliant people, very joyous, happy people, made them unhappy. My research made happy people unhappy. Now, Lata Mangeshkar, depressed people listen to this music, everybody gets excited. So millions of people get excited. Therefore, she researched Bharat Ratna, my work is okay with Padma Shri. The joy of happiness as a scientist doing this original research is a uniqueness. Nobody else has done this before. Most of us use it for the first time. This first time is an obsession of scientists. There's a joy of research for self. So most of us in younger days research for self-satisfaction. And just to tell you people, I believe some of you had come from AC Tech. I was an old student of AC Tech. So I'm an alumnus of AC Tech. Okay, I grew up in this place. I came to AC Tech when I was 16 years old. I grew up in the AC Tech environment. For the purpose of several of you to indicate to you the first 10 Padma prizes in this country, highest prize in science, out of the first 10, 6 were Tamilians and 5 were in AC College who were working in that place. Therefore, there was a vibrancy of research in that environment. When I was a student of AC College, C.V. Raman came to the class. There were 5 Nobel Prize winners, not 4, sorry. Dorothy Ashkin, Linus Pauling, Blackett, Lawrence Bragg. I bunked my 4th year class and went to the physics symposium. Therefore, there was tremendous happiness in learning with that kind of environment. But experiencing one joy of knowing is special. If one's knowledge is found useful for others and applications, beneficial to others, then they also feel happy. So the joy is now shared and doubled, and that becomes a delight. Therefore, the benefit of useful research, the joy becomes a delight shared by many. Now, research as a human activity today, there's too much focus on the process of innovation. The process of everywhere, when I talk about innovation, is a very loosely used term everywhere. Innovation is very commonly used. Now, much is written about the process of scientific research in recent times. Research as a process could lead to new knowledge, acquisition, documentation, intellectual property value, protection, capitalization, and many aspects of research are discussed very widely. Your induction program that you have been going the last 3 days was primarily in the process of research. How do you write a project proposal? How do you get it approved? How do you write a paper? All that the process of this, and many are process initiated, and this induction program is about process initiation. But there is another element of research, which is the purpose of research. What is the process? What is the purpose of doing things? The perspective, the purpose of research could vary significantly depending on who sees it. Depending upon who sees it, the purpose will vary, purpose of research. Now, there's a mind. You are creating all ideas, research happens in the mind. Finally, useful research has go to the market. So, mind to the market chain, the knowledge becomes a know-how, know-how becomes a show-how, show-how becomes a do-how, do-how becomes a use-how. In this process, different people are involved. So depending upon which segment of the mind to market chain is seeing research, they find a different value. So as scientists, as academicians, you celebrate knowledge. But in industry which is wanting to use, they want a know-how. And that know-how may fail also. So somebody who wants to put money in this will have to come and see whether this know-how will actually work. So they want you to show it first. So they believe in show-how. After it is done, somebody putting too much money in market, sell the product, they will do-how. They are the manufacturing people. So they will look at usable knowledge, useful knowledge. And we deliberate knowledge, useful knowledge, and usable knowledge. So each one of them will look at this differently. The person who is doing research, as a researcher, you and I will look at internal pleasure, the joy of doing. Somebody who is putting money for a research will look for profit. Investor will look for profit. And the user get a benefit and a sustained benefit. Therefore, the research has different value to different people. Researcher requires happiness, investor requires profit, and the user wants benefits. So, some aspects of modern research, there are 4 aspects in driving factors. You can have a person like C.V. Raman was driven by passion. Okay? Passion-driven research is driven by curiosity. And that what you seek out of this is a scholarship, not a money, how much money government of India gives as a scholarship, but scholar as a person, knowledgeable person. And what you do is a peer recognition. Okay? So, last part of my work which I had done in the useless work I talked about won me Bhatnagar Prize. The Bhatnagar Prize was a prize which is given for this country's higher science process, because the people who sit in the field of science look at this person, this work is unique, special, novelty, originality, and so on. And eventually they give you a Bhatnagar Prize, then you think, oh, you've achieved the world. You cannot achieve the world, you got recognition. And there is a purpose of research. And here you talk about the call of duty. Now you talk about a competitive edge. Now, here the peer recognition doesn't help. User recognition is important. Somebody is going to use that knowledge. They have to say this is useful. There's a power of driving factors. Call of nation. All of you celebrate Abdul Kalam. Abdul Kalam was part of strategic research. So they wanted to have defense accomplishments and whatever. So the call of nation, and whenever you talk about it, strategic research, you look for leadership, national leadership, global leadership. And there you look at a global recognition. Okay? How many of you know that in the field of atomic energy, India is ahead of the United States? Do you know? India is ahead of the United States in atomic energy. Fundamentally, 1954, Homi Bhabha gave a talk as a president of the International Atomic Energy Authority, presidential address. He said, we have to close our nuclear fuel cycle, because when you take the uranium and produce energy from it, you will get reject, which is after getting the energy out, you will get a waste, and that is even more radioactive than the original radium material you used. He said the best way to deal with it is not to encase it in vitriol and dump it somewhere. Use it again for further energy generation and close the nuclear cycle until it reaches a thorium, and after that you can safely dispose of. So closing the nuclear cycle was the idea of Homi Bhabha in 1954. So India started this work at that time. So we are the Kalpakam reactor, you see, fast breeder reactor. Fast breeder reactor produces 16.3 times more energy than nuclear reactors elsewhere in the world. First fast breeder reactor was conceived in this country, but we took a long time to implement it. COVID came and tsunami came and delayed it further. The one sodium-based pellet reactor which is working in the world is ours. And that is, of course, hidden somewhere. So what I'm trying to tell you, in the power game, it is power respects power. Therefore, we want to be respected in the field of nuclear energy, in the field of strategic energy. You need to have strength more than what others have. Okay? And that's a power-centric science. There's a people-centric process. In a people-centric science, joy of usefulness. The research is not evaluated by peers. Publishing papers and button operators doesn't mean anything. But the people see how it's very useful to us. Then benefit the society, and it needs to be social recognition. Therefore, when you talk about this in terms of research, you talk about enjoyed by science researcher, joy shared with the users, joy of national service, joy shared by unknown many. Not the people who benefit, but the people may not even know that who did this work. So joy of doing research, truly you can have whichever location you take, vertical you take, you can have that element. But there are people who in the course of life moved along this line. Moved from doing an individual, moved to users, and then national, and then of course social. So I'm going to share with you a journey along this path, not this path. So this is the journey is life. 1970, I was a student in AC College, and at that time, as when you are a young person, you ask very simple questions on a very complex system, okay? And then you have a situation where the simple question doesn't work. System is too complex. So what I did, for example, for the purpose of illustration, I was doing research in leather making, leather shoes. When you wear a leather shoe, the leather shoe will get D-shaped with time because it has comes into contact with human sweat. And the sweat will leach the chromium which is used for stabilization of leather. So they said, then I said, if I stabilize that chromium collagen bond, chromium doesn't get leached out, will the leather become sweat stable? So I said, I'll make somehow the skin to bind this chromium very strongly, and it will not come away with the sweat, and that should give me made the hypothesis. So that was the question asked. Very simple question. Then I realized after finishing my master's, array, this question is too simple. I have stabilized the chromium collagen bond, but failed to get sweat proofing. So our life is more complex. So I decided to do a PhD in chromium chemistry, inorganic chemistry, moved away from engineering. So I asked very simple systems, and I had therefore very complex questions I raised. So what controls chemical reactivity? How an electron moves from one orbital to another? Because the electron is small, one electron moving from one orbital to another. So those were the kind of things that I was doing. It was very enjoyable to me. But who cares what path the electron takes from one orbital to another? How does it help? Then, 84 to 95, asking complex questions in complex systems, that's the time in which my friend Dr. Chandrasekhar joined. I came back in 84, he joined as a PhD. So how to gain insights into complex phenomena and develop useful products and biomaterials. 2006, answering complex questions in complex systems. Here the discovery mode, it is a solution science mode. How to green chromium-based industries devise new ecology solutions returning. And after 2006, I went to Delhi as a secretary, seeking solutions to problems of complex systems, solving problems through discovery and designing Indian policies for governance and service to people, applying the research methodology. Don't think administration is not science. Administration is science. Okay? And I use completely research methodology in administering science in this country. And I even continue to do that. Let me take this question. This is a shoe, worn out shoe. And those men who are wearing leather shoes in this hall may need to know you are wearing 10 grams of chromium on your feet. Because every person who is wearing leather shoes, which I do, I have 10 grams of chromium on my feet. Man or woman, you have 6 grams of iron inside you through blood. Your hemoglobin has 6 grams of iron inside you, man or woman. I have 10 grams of chromium on my feet. Now, wearing out shoe can happen due to impact of forces, mechanical engineering problems, ground reaction forces and so on, and action of human sweat and heat, because human sweat contains lactates, phosphates, and hydroxide. They can leach the chromium away, and they do. And therefore, that's why we thought that maybe sweat proofing would say, I make the chromium bound irreversibly against we can't be leached by human sweat. So I made a simple hypothesis. I did something very clever and made the chromium bind to leather, can't be leached by human sweat. I did all that, but finally it didn't work. The chromium was bound, but the shoe lost its shape. Dimensional stability did not happen. I found this question was not right. Too simple a question on a complex system. And I learned, what did I learn as a student? Leather is too complex a system for asking such simple questions. So what do? Either you learn more or shift from complex systems to simple systems. So I went away and did a PhD in chemistry. I went to Leeds University and I worked on very simple molecules. And then what I did, those days, our inorganic chemists will say, chromium-3 has a D3 electronic configuration, the 3 D electrons here, and therefore the octahedral ligand field is very stabilized, and the chromium reactions will be dictated by the electron density of the metal ion alone. And I said, no, how can this be? You are taking a molecule, therefore molecule must have a property which is a ligand surrounding them. So how does the ligand environment influence the chromium-3 reactions? That was my PhD work. Okay? And we were the first one to show the mechanism will change depending on the ligand environment. And it so happened, when I went to do PhD in Leeds, my fellow who was sharing my laboratory came back and said, Sami, you'll be here for a long time. I said, why? First day, first hour. I said, why? Chromium reactions are very slow. You need long time to study, so you need measurement take time. I told myself, I'll disprove this, but not doing PhD. So I came back to India, CLRA, joined in 1976. And on my first day, I decided I'll disprove this. So I designed a molecule where the structure is distorted and chromium reactions will be fast. When I have to say the reaction is fast, I need measurements to show that reaction is fast. We didn't have two devices and tools. So I went to my director, not him, there's some other director. I went to him and said, give me 50,000 rupees, I'll build an instrument. He said, I came in February. All these directors, they have money in February. They don't have money in December. They don't have money in March. But February month they will have unspent balance. So this director gave me 30,000 rupees. I said, give me whatever. So my salary was 1,045 rupees, total money. So we paid 2,000 rupees extra, I managed somehow. And we built India's first soft flow spectrophotometer in CLRI, which was at that time costing 282,000 pounds in the market. We did that. And we made reactions chromium 3. First anomalous labile chromium reaction was proved from CLRI. Okay? We published that at the time. Even today, that's the first work in the world. Then we said, okay, chromium is 3, 6. How do I stabilize the chromium 4? Everybody is invoking chromium 4. Chromium 4 is like God. Nobody has seen God. I hope you're not. But everybody feel about God. So our chromium chemists feel about chromium 4, but nobody saw. But I was an atheist, so I decided to see chromium 4. So I stabilized the chromium 4. So 43% of the chromium 4 work, stabilized chromium 4 of the world were from CLR. We published them. And we had great piece of work. This aside, when I finished my PhD, the University of Leeds decided to give me a gold medal for thesis. I was the first Indian to got medal for sciences in Leeds. So the university decided to give me a dinner. And they told me, you're an engineer, you took so many years to engineering, you left that and came to do science. Why? People go from science to technology. You come from technology to science, why? But you're a bright guy. I said, you call me a bright guy. The truth of the matter is so dumb that I understood I can never master engineering. It's too complex for me. So I come to study small molecules. Then that person asked, so you understood small molecules. Now I understood even these molecules are not simple enough. Then I asked, what are you going to do? So I go and study electrons. I moved away, I went to the US, and we were talking about if there's an orbital which has an electron, there's an orbital which is wanting the electron. In this electron jump from a donating orbital or receiving orbital, what rules will be followed? Fortunately, they are not like traffic rules of Madras. People obey, the electrons obey rules, people don't obey rules. So we talked about discovering the rules by which the electron jump takes place. Just one electron moving from one orbital to another. So I went through all those factors, quantified the processes, and some of the best research in that area had come from my work in that period. All was very nice. Curiosity, focus upon a self-satisfaction. I got peer recognition, and everybody said, great, great, great. I even got a Bhatnagar Prize for all this. Okay? But that was all useless work. I repeat, the useless work. So when the Bhatnagar Prize was given, I told my DG, sir, you must dismiss me from service of CLRI. I said, why? There was a story. There was a watchman. This guy told his boss, night watchman, told his boss, hey, don't travel by the train because I had a dream yesterday and the train was going to be not an accident and you will go, you'll have a problem, so don't go. So the boss cancelled his ticket, didn't go. Indeed, that happened. The train went, accident happened, everybody died. This guy was saved. So the owner gave a lot of money to the watchman, thanked him for saving his life, but dismissed him from service. I told my boss, I am like that watchman. I was dreaming in the night. I am supposed to be working. The night watchman should be guarding. But I was dreaming. I was sleeping and dreaming. So it's a useless work. So throw me out of CLRI. Therefore, I am going to talk to you today, after this, what that we have done, which is useful. So it is a case of solution science. Priorities of this useful research, we have to identify the user. And then it will transition from analysis to synthesis. All these times, why reactions happen, why chemical reactivity operate like this, and why electron jumps from this orbit to another, and what controls them. These are all studies and analysis. But here we require synthesis. And synthesis of several knowledge, not just one electron alone. So I'm going to give you a case report of user-focused research. And I'm going to tell you, as soon as I came back here, CLRA I was appointed number 5 at the age of 34. Then naturally everybody gets very upset. The people who have been working for so many years, they don't get done. There's somebody who was a student comes and occupies. Naturally they'll be upset. So they wrote, this fellow has done useless work, which is true. And science may not be useful for CLRA. 84. I said, look, let me see how my science becomes useful. So I decided to develop two tanning agents, synthetic material, and bring useful research in 84. So I went to the tanning industry and asked what kind of tanning agents you want. What are the problems you have? What kind of tanning agent you have? Fortunately, my industry was so well developed at that time, they didn't know what they wanted. So they couldn't tell me what problem they wanted. They will say, CLI is not doing well. But you ask them, what is it that you have asked me to do? They don't know. So that was the position in 84. Then we developed and identified a user need. I will tell you how we did. Then draw a product specification. Then don't go to the technology and produce. If you make a product, that product will sell at what price? So you need to look at the price band envelope to which this product can be sold before you go to the lab. Then I asked, and they told me 40 rupees. If it is 40 rupees, my raw material price must be less than 16 rupees. Only then they'll get 20% profit. So I said 40%. Then I chose my raw material based on this selling price and then set up a design strategy. This is the thinking prior to think process initially, first 5 steps. Then I developed the laboratory scale, scaled up, developed basic engineering package with all process control, standardize the process, and product specifications at pilot scale. Then we made 4 tons of the product. Okay, went and used it in 14 tanneries, and they used user trials, and they found diverse applications. They are extremely happy. Then we went and did a technology transfer, and we sold it to the industry, and the technology transfer process and completed the commercialization step. All that 10 steps. These 10 steps are common. It's not just only to that particular product. If you went back, these 10 steps are you can put remove the synthetic material, you can put anything else on top. These 10 steps are fundamental. So let me tell you what we did. I went to the tanning industry and asked what kind of other chemical will be, but a chemical guy. What kind of other chemical is useful? They didn't have any knowledge. I said, okay, you take this leather part, this belly portion is loose, back portion is tight, because the way nature has evolved. Now when you make shoes, you require tightness. So what they will do, this portion alone they will take and throw away this portion for something minor use. So there's something called cutting value. Now this cutting value is normally low. So what they will do, they use a phenolic resin to pack this portion, increase the compaction in the belly region so that they can get a little bit more cutting value. But even a phenolic resin, any phenolic process will undergo oxidation. So photodiscoloration will happen. Because phenolic resins are used when you want to water soluble, you sulfonate it, and therefore it will compete with the dye, and the dye cost will increase. Dyeing cost will increase, color yield will become low. And the chromium absorption those days was, if you use 1 gram of chromium, 0.7 will go inside, 0.3 will go outside. I said, supposing I make a product where I use the chromium not only for tanning, but also prevent the photooxidation of phenolic resin by a photoresist, by a clever application of modern science, and increase the dye absorption process, this product will get 3 advantages. It will give me increased cutting yield, no photo discoloration, high color yield, cost of dyeing will come down, and chromium absorption 100%. Therefore, I solved one problem. I said, could chromium be used to render the phenolic resin photoresist, increase dye affinity? Because any photoresist discoloration process, absorption of light, it produces high energy molecule, and it stays for a long time. If inside the molecule you have a chromium which is absorbing that energy away, the energy transfer process, and release it as heat, then oxidation will not happen. So I use chromium-3 as a photoresist quencher. I said quencher, and we did that chemistry for later. That's important. Now, this product is in the market since 1987. Enjoy market share of 90% in a country, and the product of choice in the global market. And there's no international equivalence when I did that. Because it's pretty high science. And one person did a PhD, and she has 1,107 publications. And all the theory that I made were proved by experiments with the new model studies. We created more than 1,000 man-years of employment, earned for the institute a considerable royalty in 7 years. The accumulated turnover in the country is more than $1 billion. This was done in 85, 86. Now, the scientist in you wants to be the first one to arrive. You don't want to be second one. You want to be leader. That will not go. Obsession. So let me see where is the science of India's leadership in tanning. So the people may not know the Chromate here in Chennai is called Chromate because until 1912, this tanning with the chromium was unknown. American Englishmen were breeding as a trade secret. There was one Chari who rediscovered chrome tanning in Chromate in 1912. That was what the place is called Chromate. Now, chrome tanning salts are obtained by the reduction of dichromate by the molasses, and that chromium salt is not made by tannery. In those days, the major textile business was a khaki uniform for the military and police guys. So Binni used to be major guy, and Binni, for khaki dyeing they use chromium-6. So the chromium-6 will be used by Binni company. You'll get reduced to chromium-3, and that becomes the tanning material after reduction. So current technologies which were used at that time, 65, 70% will go inside the leather, but rest of it will unabsorbed, create environmental problems. The question I asked, could we get a near complete absorption of chromium? Make it 100% so that nothing goes out. How do we do this scientifically? I said, you take this waste solution from tanning industries in Chromate, bring them here, and take what is not absorbed and look at the structural part of what is contained in that waste solution. What is the chromium based in what is the structure of the chromium? And we found the structure, poorly absorbing species. We found this molecular structure was responsible for main part of the unabsorbed chromium. Because it has two oxygen atoms here, this is called super exchange process, CRO, and these things will make it very labile, will not bind to anything strongly. We said, okay, if this is a structure, there has to be an intermediate through which this chromium can be bonded. In the reduction, I scavenged that intermediate, and such that this formation will not take place. So we did, we eliminated the formation of this compound and got a product which is more than 95%, 98% absorption. Okay? And this was commercialized. India is the first country which commercialized a tanning salt which emitted no chromium. Then we said, okay, remove the chromium. People can use aluminum. Aluminum is a non-transition element. It will not behave like a transition element. But aluminum is known, it's an sp orbital system, but it can involve the charge transfer process. Those of you who are chemists will understand it can involve charge interactions with the phenolic system. If you have phenol, you put an aluminum chloride, it will shift. That's a charge transfer process in spectroscopy. So that charge transfer means there's a ligand, the electron is found in the metal electrons. And you populate that, it can be made behave like a transition element. So we use this entropy control and produce an aluminum-based salt. You can see this. And we did a completely aluminum-based tanning salt, which is self-absorption. It doesn't require chromium, and you can tan it, and permanently. And this substituted transition element, what we did, was aluminum reaction will be entropy controlled, not enthalpy controlled, because their bonds are weak. So we created an entropy control process, and it remains the sole example of such a product globally for the last 30 years. It has happened in the neighboring campus, in the marketplace for decades. Now I'm going to talk about something beyond leather. Braving new paths which angels fear to tread. The angels mean the Western world. That's what it amounts to. This is something called chromate ore processing residue. You take the chromate ore and you want to reach the chromium away. What you do, you put calcium hydroxide, put oxygen, and roast it in 1800 degrees. You'll oxidize to chromium 6. Then you water with sulfuric acid, the correct chromic acid will be formed. Then you convert it to sodium dichromate and crystallize. If you have this process commercially, if you need to have at least 45 to 48% of chrome content for it to be a viable process, and you need to extract 85% of that 40% will be recovered. But other 15% will be left out. In that 15%, some 15% of the 15% will be in a labile form, and the 85% of the left out process will be immobile, because chromium ore appears in the valence state of chromium 3, chromium sesqui oxide, chromium Cr2O3, which is insoluble. People will read in newspapers, chromium is polluting and all that, but what you don't realize, the S crust has a chromium concentration of 125 ppm, which means chromium concentration is quite high in the cells, yet it's not polluting. The reason it is not polluting, because it's not available in the soluble form. It is insoluble in aqueous systems at low pH conditions. Now, the chromate ore is in that form of aqueous system, immobilize them. So the world, what they used to do, this chromate ore, they will immobilize the mobilized chromium in the reduction process, the oxidation process, and then send for secured landfill. How many of you know the place called Ranipet? Anybody from Ranipet area? Okay. Ranipet, தெரியுமா உங்களுக்கு? Huh? Okay. Ranipet, there used to be something called Tamilnadu Chromate, which is the government of Tamilnadu company, and the company was fortunately closed before 95. I became the director in 96. It is well survived to at least solve the problem. Now, this chromate ore residue is a living problem in Ranipet today. And the problem in this, the chromium contained in this chromate ore, chromium hexavalent chromium contained in the chromate ore residue, doesn't come out immediately. It comes out at 20 years and 30 years later. It turned out that there was very famous cases. I don't know whether you've seen a movie called Erin Berkowitz. There's a company, it happened in the United States. Now this problem, world tries to immobilize the chromium 6 and send back. We decided that process has failed across the world so far. We said we will not do that. We mobilize 100% of the chromium from the residue and leave this chromium free. And this is a technology that we developed, and through a controlled oxidation process, micro explosion, this is a proof that there is no chromium 6, chromium at all. Not chromium 3 or hexavalent, no chromium. This is the excited fraction fluorescence system. This was done, and we have a global patent on this. And I can tell you another case. When you take the chromate ore, mine it from the field, you will subject it to friction. The friction and high heat and some high pH will oxidize small amounts of chromium 3 to chromium 6. And general process was to reduce with the iron 2. Iron 2, iron 3 potential is pH dependent, and iron 2 is not stable. And you have to supply the reduction process electron and proton source independently. Iron gives the electron source, you have to give proton source. What we did, we used Kadukai. Myrabalon is called the Kadukai. As you know, Kadukai is a very well known pharmaceutical product. It's a phenolic acid. It provides both the electron source and proton source at the same time. And we did that, and now there is a commercial use in Tata Steel, Tata Sukin's mines, and the first experiment was 1 million tons. And this is a process that has really changed the dynamics, and we have something like 12 patents, and more of the 8 of them are in use. They change the dimensions. There is the cadmium sulfide is used as a pigment, and cadmium sulfide is terrible in terms of toxicity. So they replace it with cerium sulfide. And cerium sulfide itself is eco-benign, but the process by which cerium sulfide is generated is also eco-strained, environmentally strained, because carbon disulfide and so on. So we decided that we will not do that. We take a sulfate-reducing bacteria, take cerium sulfate and reduce this with a sulfate-reducing bacteria. We got the sulfate bacteria from this Pallikaranai, the marshland near the NIOT. We brought that system and we reduced it, cerium sulfate to cerium sulfide, in a biomimetic pathway. But the problem with this, that bacteria is a prehistoric. It doesn't populate, it produces very small amounts. Therefore, it's not commercially feasible. Then we decided, take that apparatus of reduction and express it in E. coli, and then do a reverse engineering, and you get a process which is characterizable process. We have a global patent. Now, so far, I talked about industrial applications. This is science, collagen, which is a skin protein, and we talked about host gas interactions on those. These are something that we have done, which with no application in mind, but we had the host gas interactions with a specific idea. Those of them who have a burn injury, you want to cover them, because when the skin is injured, they'll get pollution, infection will happen. So you have to cover. So they will use different kind of covers. One is a skin cover. You can use bovine, say, dental, use it for collagen cover, but that cover will give temporary cover. But new skin will get formed, and the skin, what you covered, will go away, bioabsorbable system. But what happens is during the process, if it conjugates with the carbohydrates, you reduce carb. So what we decided is to do the host gas interactions on collagen sheets and the right kind of growth factors, and this is a guy who was injured, and this is a curing. And this was a process of scarless healing by understanding how geometrical factors alone were determining the host gas interactions. This was part of the original science that we had done. And the science insight was applied for scarless healing process. These are, of course, that's a very unique case. We had done lots of products. There are products in the market. Forget all this. You remember, I don't know, many of you may not have been born at that time. There was an accident in a Kumbakonam school. Some of the earlier senior people may remember. And those times, the personal health secretary used to be the collector of that particular place, Kumbakonam. What TLI did was to send this collagen sheet, burn dressing material that we developed, and send to them. And these are the children who received this collagen sheet that we had that time donated to this process. And the smile on the face of children is the most valuable reward for research. No publication, no Bhatnagar Prize, nothing will produce as much joy as the smiles of these children. That happened as useful research. So far, I talked about research itself. There's an innovative deployment of research, which is also important. Deployment of research is as important as development of research itself. The problem in this country, there's enough development but no deployment. That's the biggest problem in this country. So let me show you a case. It so happened on the day of my appointment as a director of the Leather Research Institute, Supreme Court ordered the closure of 400 tanneries in Tamilnadu. And 400 tanneries in Tamilnadu means 2.5 lakh jobs. And there was 9,000, 6,000 crores turnover, 8,000 crore exports, and so on. At least the court could have waited, I could have ordered 1 day before or 1 day after, but they did it on my day of appointment. So what we did was we developed a solution for all those 400 fellows, 764 guys. And 148, we developed a technology solution for it, we developed a technology plan. Some 148 guys were sent to 8 towns where leather is made. And we took a house, and these were located there. And they worked with 764 tanneries simultaneously. And we solved the problem in 9 months. I got a court to give me 9 months to solve this problem to satisfaction of the court for them to reopen, restore operations. So we did that. It's a deployment of, innovative deployment of technology solutions on ground. So 2,500 jobs saved, and you have many things. And the ecological changes are affecting about 30 lakh people. So the tanning sector, we didn't stop there at that time. Then we moved that sector from discharge to zero discharge of liquid from tannery clusters in Tamil Nadu. And at that time, when I became the director, 42 million liters were used per day by tanning industry in Tamil Nadu. Today, they come to 6 million. They make the same amount of leather. But the water they have obtained, processed, is recovered, recycled, their reverse osmosis is done, recycled, and the water, the reject of the reverse osmosis is evaporated, and the salt is back, and nothing salt goes out. So now waste can go to public land or sewer, and that happened in the entire industry in Tamil Nadu. That happened as early as 2005. So principle, reduce and minimize the waste through in-plant control, benchmark emission, and we did a whole amount of 764 companies simultaneously, 9 months. CLRI used to have an analytical group. We did carry out some 3 crore analysis during this period of time. What cannot be controlled, treat to national norms and global standards, and there is no tannery which is now used without being connected to pollution control device. It happened in Tamil Nadu. What cannot be treated, manage safely and avoid discharge in the public land and use, and bring secure management of treated waste, zero liquid discharge. Now learn to recover economic value from what salt we discharged. That salt recovered, how do we recover the economic value from it as well? So underlying principle, keep the costs of compliance, environmental compliance, less than 2% of turnover, because it should be viable. Viability is important. This is from your place, Ranipet. Okay? This is the reverse osmosis plant of the wastewater, where the water is recovered. So Tamil Nadu industry is posed in water-starved region. If the total water availability per person is less than 1,000 meter cube per year, it's called a water-starved region. Tamil Nadu already 980. Tamil Nadu is a water-starved region across the world. So we need to use the water better. So, and the leather industry had crossed the threshold carrying capacity. So enjoys health and expertise skills. Anna University made a very big contribution to the development of the leather industry in Tamil Nadu, because 60% of the industry today managed by students of Anna University. And adopt zero liquid discharge norms. And today water efficiency is 3 times more than anywhere in the world. The zero liquid discharge includes a guideline in the United States in 2018 and a norm in 2021. And leather industry is practicing from 2005 in Tamil Nadu. So set the benchmarks. Tanning sector is more developed than the US and many other developed parts of the world, and that was because of research, useful research. Now I went to Delhi. Supreme Court decided to issue an order. The Ramasami, Science Secretary, will solve the water problem of India, single line. I went to the judge and said, sir, if we give this order to Lord Rama, he cannot do. What give to Ramasami? How can I solve water problem of the country? But anyway, there's a court order. So what we did, we looked at 26 different types of water challenges, and we gave a global tender, and we had 49 hotspots in the world, and 175 solution providers were challenged. I said, you have 25,000 people, you have to provide this water, clean agriculture, municipal, and drinking at a cost of less than 3 paisa per liter. That's all the parameters. We selected them, and we selected 25,000 population, and now I can tell you, without boasting, 193 villages in this country are completely free of water problem. Municipal, drinking, and agriculture, and the price the government spent was 740 rupees per person. So 1.6 million people today are rid of the water problem because of the implementation of the technology. You may ask why? It is not one technology. You have to use 14, 15 technologies to solve the problem, because the convergent solution requires multiples of technology solutions process, and that's what happened. Innovative deployment happened. These are the kind of tools employed, different parts of the country. Okay, I so far talked about science-based. And I also said research is not just laboratory. And my friend Melvin Goldman, the professor of Cornell, he was in World Bank. He knew me when I was in 30s in CLRI. So he knew that I hated bureaucracy. So he came to my office in Delhi and looked at me. Hey, Sami, you have become a bureaucrat. Because I used to dig bureaucrats, take a dig at bureaucrats. I said, no, No, Mel, I not became a bureaucrat. What do you mean? This all this. I made administration of science. He said, I don't believe this. He said, I don't believe this. Okay, that is your choice. Then what he did, he took one file, wherein he wrote a lot of my notings. He went and sat in my ante room and read for 25 minutes. He came back. Hey, Sammy, it is true, you made administration of science. I said, now that he told me this, you justify the statement. He said, science relies on evidence. And their decision process is evidence-backed. Your logic is broad. Therefore, I'm going to tell you very quickly how science research methodology was used here. So research methodology is not just what you do in a laboratory, doing shaking hand floss. It's beyond. So I went to the Department of Science in Delhi. At that time, young people were not coming to research was a problem. So I decided to bring a scheme. The talent supply chain of science was very weak for R&D. So what we decided to set the program called INSPIRE, Innovation Science Pursuit for Inspired Research. So what we did was I targeted 2,000 scientists by the scheme to be brought into the landscape every year. Because at that time, 1.34 lakh scientists were the full-time equivalent in this country. And 1.5, 4% will retire, 6,000 people will come. So I said I will have 1,000 people coming from the stream. So if we have 1,000 people coming to this, at least 2,000 people must do PhD. If 2,000 people do PhD, you must have at least 10,000 people doing MSc, masters. And 10,000 people doing MSc means at least 50,000 people, school children wanting to science. And 50,000 would require something, 2.5 children in the class age group 10 to 5 will be taken. So I announced 1 million science awards for children the age of 10 to 15. Whole country, 4.5 lakh schools. And they will give 5,000 rupees, they will take a project, they will go demonstrate. We just send jury, select 5-10 of them, bring them to the state level, from state level, bring it to national level. And it turned out from the 1 million kids in 5 years, we were able to bring 3,650 students to Delhi at national level. 210 patents have come out of these children, 10 to 15 age group, and that was INSPIRE. Then we said we were top 1% in school 10, class 10, and decided to a science course, you invite a science camp. So we invited, with 70 Nobel Prize winners participated in science camps across the country. And we had 7 lakh children who participated in this so far. And then we are a top 1% performer in any school board, decided to do a science course, BSc, Mathematics, Physics, Chemistry, Life Sciences. You got 80,000 rupees scholarship for 5 years. And 20,000 for a contingency for research. For a top rank in any branch of science, medicine, agriculture, veterinary, whatever, this will be PhD, a full scholarship. And get 1,000 contractual positions of a scientist, the salary of an assistant professor of an IIT, and research grant of 7 lakhs per year. We put 4,400 crores into the scheme in 10 years. And that scheme is based on evidence. I tell you what evidence. I didn't have an exam. I did not want to have judgments. So first I said 2005. How many children took top 1% in the respective school board? And all 29 boards. In 2012, same cohort, 10 to 12. How many of them were top 1%, both in the class 10 and class 12, 2 years? 23,500 something. Then I asked the question, how many of them were from small villages, small towns? 62%. So I awarded the NEET. How many of them were girls? 52%. So it is balanced development. So why create JEE type exam and keep people out? It is a national development process. It was evidence-based. So we collected all data, and I had 33 crore data, which are analyzed before the scheme was developed. Okay? That is science enough, research enough, systematic investigation. I can go back and ask, when I went to the Delhi, 15% of the publications came from the university system. When I was a student, 50% came from the university system. I said, what is this? We have to rejuvenate research in the university system. So what we did, we looked at the publications of India 1996 to 2006, and I said, how many institutions contribute 50% of publications of India? 35. How many universities? 14. How many IITs have H index above 50? 1. Okay, all the universities which have H index above 50, top in the 14 of them, I give you 30 crores for 3 years as a research incentive grant. The other 40 to 49 will get 15 crores. 30 to 39 will get 9 crores. 25 to 20 will 6 crores. Evidence-based policies. And we gave away 2 and 2 crores as a grant. We said you can use the money for what you want, but you cannot use it for building. Because most of the people spend it on buildings, no buildings. It turns out that scheme, in 2 years later, when 14 had become 41 universities, then 41 had become 61. Today, there are 139 universities which constitute 50% of India's publications. And that is called promotion of university research scientific excellence PERS. So every one of these, the 10 agenda that I have, had evidence-based, logic-based, research methodology-based. So it is a decision, but it was done with a research methodology. So don't think research means only that happens in a laboratory. Okay, I came back to India, Madras, as a retirement. And you have energy, what to do? You spend it probably. So there is one Umayyapuram Sivaraman, you know, Mridanga, great Mridanga Vidwan. We decided to do some research with him, and we found the traditional musical instrument like Mridangam lacked the support of modern tools of research and management. And it is a traditional instrument. The people who make artisan, they go away, then the children won't take that, they'll disappear. So how do you make it de-skilling? How do you ensure through science you can make Mridangam without that artisanal support system? So we did all that. We developed a model, and we, this is a leather parchment. This parchment, and then they cooked rice is used for black patch. And if you take that Mridangam to Australia, it's an island state, they'll fumigate it because they'll worry about the bacteria. Then this black patch will fall off, then Mridangam is not Mridangam anymore. So how do we make a phytocentric regulation-based systems? Large amount of data we collected, couple, and we got some new research insights. We got some patents, transport-friendly Mridanga, and so on. And we also had with some original findings here, and we wrote a monograph in Academic Foundation, published in 2019, and that's the Mridangam, which is research-based. The research was given to Mridangam. How do Mridangam is done? So on the way, in my useful research, I have 237 papers, a pair of journals, 33 PhDs, 41 patents, 12 process know-hows. All this gave me a sense of fulfillment for myself, joy for myself. About $3 billion turnover from chemical research and created 7,500 jobs, a sense of purpose for the research. We saved 2.5 lakh jobs, 1.5 billion turnover. This is a innovative deployment of technology, deployment of useful research. Sense is not development. Sense of relief. Then we contribute to the innovative deployment of useful research, introducing sustainability to any sector, water solutions to 1.5 million people, pain and reduction to some thousands of people, open up possibilities for enabling livelihood craft like Mridangam through research, and I consider the sense of being useful. We had catalyzed 10 transformative steps in research landscape through evidence-based path of research, and it's a sense of service. And a moral of the story, I come to the end of the story, let me finish the moral of the story. The knowledge to the user-centric priority research. Okay? If it's a useful research, you need a user focus in research, not your desire. It's demand-driven, not supply side. Then you have to innovate to lead for you to have a competitive advantage. Brave new paths. Research for pain reduction. Deployment of useful research in leather, water, music, governance, you name it. Research can be used anywhere. And in this process, for me, what I found, in this part, the useless part, where research-centric priority was a discovery mode. Then I came to this benefits to leadership-centric priorities as solution designer mode. Solution designer. Unfortunately, most of our research training in this country does not generate the designing capacity of a solution. You understand processes, you understand logic, but you do not know how to synthesize. A designer needs to be Any designer needs to be the ability to synthesize, and research training in this country, most of our institutions lack this. And people-centric priorities require convergent solutions to problems, and any real-life system, user-centric has to be related to the real-life system. We prefer to work in closed systems in the laboratory and discover and write a paper and celebrate we have done everything else. You understood your knowledge. But if you want to work with usefulness, real-life system is crucial. You have to select a real-life system, open systems, and therefore I cannot go back and ask simple questions. So the take-home medicine, curiosity-driven research in early life and discovery science, majority of young, and I would still recommend that you stay in the discovery science because it's exciting. Don't lose it when you're young. Favored the selection of simple systems, complex questions, and challenge the researchers and focus on self-satisfaction and excellence, and usually, in this case, super specialization helps. Purpose-driven research, call for solution science, user satisfaction is important, real-life challenges associated with complex systems, and solutions demand synthesis of relevant knowledge, not just understanding. People-centric research demands innovative deployment of research. Complex systems necessitate solutions to national problems and social problems, and convergence of research-based only means and super-specialized knowledge hardly helps. No problem in the world can be solved with a superior understanding of any branch of science, single branch of science. Raman could not have solved the food problem of India. He required Swaminathan. Therefore, please understand the convergence requires the ability to synthesize many several aspects of knowledge. And let me say, in my life is centered around Gandhi's lessons. I came back to India in '84 not to do research. I'd already given up on the research system in the country because it's too bureaucratic, too feudal. So I came back in '84 to change the things around in this country. CLR came up for closure at that time. I came and joined an institution which is not doing well because I came to change. Now, the reason I came to change was I read Gandhi. Be the part of the change you wish to see. He said, you expect somebody else to change the country. You're not going to happen on your own. So if it is people like me don't go back and change things around, generations of younger scientists will have the same problem of feudalism. So let me go back, let me compromise on my life. I came here. Now, he also said, the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of other people. I think researchers must understand research as a service, not research only for success. Research as a service. And that's what I found in my life. And I say I found myself from life through useful research. And I would say thank my academic family for being a part of the journey. And here we have Chandrasekhar is right here. Okay. Were you director at that time? Okay. He was the director at that time. This guy is a present director. This guy is a present director. He was a previous director. And this is a director of the Jurassic Times. And we finished this. Thank you very much. Joy multiplies when shared by many. Thank you very much.
So sheer passion, social relevance, satisfying one's goals. These were the three phrases that struck to my mind as I was listening to Sir's journey. And one's journey for the quest of the usefulness of research. I think this is one of the most appropriate of all the sessions to be the final session of the 3-day induction program, because we have been discussing several nuts and bolts of research, how to start, what to read, what not to read, and how not to read. So we were talking about literature survey, research methodology, different topics. But finally, you see a true researcher who has traveled the path, and the way he said, I wanted to find out the answer to this question, so I went to the University of Leeds. I understood that this was useless. I wanted to do something useful, so I went to USA. I was just wondering how many could really do that. Is that even a possibility to think like that? So we will think if we get a fellowship, we will go there. If somebody sponsors, we will try and do this project. But the urge to do it has no doubt made him the secretary, in DST, government of India, so many real life problems. I think that is truly inspirational, sir. I hope that all of us are driven by these kind of questions. When he said how many years he had spent in this university and how he moved to various countries to find answers, whether it is donating those collagen tissues to that Kumbakonam fire accident victims, or, all these things, the solution for the water problem. And truly you are Ramaswamy, in the sense of that particular term in theology. So definitely these kind of role models are essential for young researchers like us to think whether we have spent a useful time doing research, because once a researcher, I believe always a researcher. Right? You do your PhD, even after that, if some other questions arises, you keep thinking about how to solve this problem only from the researcher's point of view. I think with that, no words of gratitude from CFR would suffice what sir has done for this particular session. I'm really thankful for taking the time and being here with us. So with this, we will move on to the valedictory session. But before that, if any of you have any questions on the usefulness, on the joy of the research, I think sir would be happy to answer a couple of questions.
What happened?
I have a question for you, sir. Yes. In fact, I have even noted it down. What really drives you to be a researcher consistently? Like, I don't think you ever took a break from asking questions to societal problems.
Hey, Shobha, this question has been asked of me several times. And one was when this Inspire was done, the Commerce Secretary had told some Canadian visitor, some very distinguished visitor, one of those high-profile guys, this guy has developed this. So he asked me, what drives you? This question. So you're an English person, so you ask the same question like that man. I'm going to give the same answer. Nothing drives me. Okay? He got upset.
I'm also upset.
Let me finish it. Then what happened was, he went out. Then a few minutes later he came back and said, I don't believe you. There is no way that you can do all this without something driving. I said, Mark, vacuum pulls me.
Okay.
Nothing drives me.
Oh, okay. When there is nothingness.
When there's nothing happening that needs to be done, what a problem needs to be solved. That's a vacuum. Okay? There's a talent requirement for research. That's a vacuum. So vacuum pulls me, nothing drives me.
Okay. So nothing.
Because I'm not a driven person. I was a very driven person when I was young. I will tell you that. I always have been telling untruth. Okay? I was very, very driven when I was young. Because all those awards and all that you talk about, otherwise you would not get them. You have to commit yourself to everything. So, one of my friends who was organizing it, she took me for lunch today. And she asked, how many children you have? I never married. Then he said, dedication. I did not answer that. I decided to answer this here. It wasn't dedication. Nobody will marry me for the way I live my life. Therefore, fundamentally, it is not about driven. The driven state of mind is useful at a certain phase of life. But beyond a certain level, it is better not to be driven. And because when you drive, you seek. When you seek, fill a vacuum, you give. You don't seek. So I moved into this position of giving rather than taking. That's why I have avoided that question. Anybody else? I hope, but it's a true answer. Because you can ask the question, why am I sitting in, I don't know whether you know, I sit in Anna University. I have an office in Anna University. Okay? CTDT. And many of them, I've been sitting here since August. Many of you people may not even know. And people are asking, how come? Because I'm such an innocuous guy. But the reason I am sitting here because I see a need. I see a need for people like me who have nothing to prove to anybody in the world, nothing to show, just give. When anybody comes to my office, they will say something, okay, do something. On this occasion, I am going to make a request to some of the faculty here. 4 days ago, there was a student from MIT, our MIT, who studied here, went to France, got a PhD, and he has come back for a short time, and he wanted to give something to MIT. So he went to MIT, talked to people. Then finally they directed him to Anna University. So this Anna University came and he replied emails and all that. Apparently none of them got responded. So some little girl, young girl who was sitting in CTDT, she found nobody else answering him. So she led the boy to me, and I was in the middle of something else. So I told him, Baba, sit down, I'm in the online meetings, you wait. So he listened to me talking about this. He got very excited with what I was speaking. He wants to work with students now and talk to people like you. Okay? He's a very young person, 28 years old, 1994 born. What I'm trying to tell you, it is important that a research environment, research ecosystem is built around the exchange of views, ideas, open discussions, and not too much structure. We allowed ourselves to be dominated by bureaucracy, and then we blame bureaucrats. We ourselves became bureaucrats in the process. My request is, if such people were to come, open them up. See, the one advantage, I have a much older man than him. Okay, and second part is, I have all those chapas. This award, this and that award. But that aside, all of us are same. Every one of us sitting in this room is a creation of God, and with equal amount of capability and equal strength. Some got more exposure, some got less exposure. But how do we bring, this is a statement of Vivekananda, the difference between English, Western education and Indian education. Indian education said man is born perfect. Education reveals internal perfection. This is Vivekananda. Man is born perfect. Education is to reveal the internal perfection to oneself, self-realization. The theory of anomy, but I gave this lecture at Anna University in 1994 on professional ethics. I talked about the theory of anomy. The theory of anomy, in Latin word, is a man is lawless. Education makes him law-abiding. So they are looking at education for law-abiding. We are looking at education for self-realization. Therefore, this question of discussions, exchanges, is a part of the process. Research will happen. You keep your mind open, research will happen. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.